My name is Dan Dmitrikiw. I'm the local history specialist librarian at Westlake Porter Public Library in Westlake, Ohio, a western suburb of Cleveland. Today is May 23rd, 2017, and we are conducting this interview at Porter Public Library here in Westlake. It's my pleasure to be interviewing today veteran Edward Toman. Mr. Toman, where were your parents born and who were they?
My parents were Frank and Helen Toman. They were born in Cleveland, Ohio.
And what were their occupations?
My father was a machinist. Basically, by trade, he grew up during the Depression and worked in a machine shop all his life. My mother was a housewife and never worked any place.
And did you have any siblings? And if so, what were their names? And did any of them serve in the military?
There were four of us. I had three siblings. My eldest brother was Francis. He grew up and actually graduated from high school when I was in elementary school. He went into the Air Force at some point in time. I don't remember exactly. It was about 3 years after he graduated. He was a skilled draftsman. He had a drafting trade he did, and the Air Force offered him the opportunity to continue being a draftsman in the Air Force. My second oldest brother was Bernard. He was closer to me than anybody. He grew up, and when he graduated from high school, he got married. He decided to go into the U.S. Marine Corps as a reserve because he had a job with Ford Motor. He wanted to maintain his job and still be in the service. So he joined the Marines as a reserve and served 7 years as a reservist. Then, of course, I came in. I graduated from high school, went to college for 2 years. Then I left college. I guess I was getting kind of depressed with college because it was too difficult for me. And I decided to go into the Marine Corps also because Bernard had given me some indication what the Marine Corps, what you have to go through. So I went into the Marine Corps myself. My youngest brother, Jerry, he's about 3 years older than me. He never went into the service at all.
Very good. And what were you doing with yourself before you entered the service?
Well, as I said, I was in college. I was starting at Case Western in engineering. Actually, I went in as a mathematics major. I found that mathematics was not a good subject to stay in, so I went to engineering. After being there for 2 years in engineering, I decided to drop out and go into some real life experience, which is where I went and enlisted in the Marine Corps.
At what age?
Oh, at what age? I'd been 19 at the time. Yes, I was 19.
Very good. And so you enlisted?
I enlisted.
And you said you chose that specific branch because of your brother?
Because of my brother, and also after meeting with the enlisting agent, he got an indication that I had an engineering background. I was a good possibility for pilot training. And that's what I wanted to do. Somehow I decided I wanted to be a pilot, and didn't pursue it for other reasons that come up later on.
And your early life and going into college, where were you living?
I was living in college but staying at home, so I stayed in the dorm during the week but had to come home on the weekends.
But what city?
We lived in North Royalton. My dad drove me to the college every day. College is in Cleveland.
Very good. And what happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training? How did that look?
To me, it looked very traumatic because I made a deal with the government and I realized it was a contract. And I think everybody I met, we were on trains. I was going on a train and we left from Cleveland, and that train stopped in a lot of minor cities and major cities going down. And everybody I met, they were pretty much the same position I was in, kind of shaken up by what they were getting into, because we're all going down to the same boot camp.
And when you got there, how were you greeted? What sort of experience did you have in those first hours or days?
The first hours we got there, the train station met, and we were taken off. And there was a receiving barracks. You don't go right into Parasol, you go into a receiving barracks. A receiving barracks was just an overnight stay area. So we were kind of indoctrinated where it was going to be like to live in a barracks. We had separate bunch of beds in an area. And we were also indoctrinated in the policy that somebody has to be on duty all the time. There is a fire watch continuously, so we had to appoint people who were fire watchers. You had to wake up, you had to take it for an hour, and then you had to wake up another person who was going to come out and take fire watch. This was a safety issue because
And this was where?
there's a receiving barracks
In what?
outside Paris Island. It was, I forget the town it's actually in, but it's a short bus ride from Paris Island. So, but it's just there for trains to stop and let off passengers to stay overnight.
And do you recall any of your instructors? And if so, what were they like?
They were very strict. I recall my head drill instructor was Staff Sergeant Schrader. He was very dominating, very military-like. Then there was Sergeant Barnes. He was a rotund individual, but very strict, but very comical at times. He could tell a joke and get away with it, but he didn't like being joked with too much. And then there was Sergeant Witt. Sergeant Witt was very straightforward, just like Sergeant Schrader was.
And did you receive any special training? And if so, what?
Well, at Paris Island, everybody receives special training. You have to receive all the drill instructor training you have to go through and everything that they want you to do, including learning how to handle a rifle and fire a rifle and so forth. So any special training that they had as a drill, as the in the area, there were special periods we went through. We had to actually learn how to fire a rifle, had to learn how to had to do round the chow line, had to do everything. So we were there, I think it was 12 or 14 weeks we were actually there. And through those periods of time, we went to various training sessions on a weekly basis.
And then from there, where were you channeled?
Well, from there, as I said, I was trying to get into the reserve or the air field. So I stayed there. At the end of the training there, they put us to a training class and trying to categorize where we were each going to go and specialize. So I wanted to be a pilot. So I went to the pilot schools in Florida. But the doctor told me I could not go to pilot school because I had blood pressure. My blood pressure was too high. He's put me on a list. We actually held me over and put me on a waiting list for like 6 weeks, trying to get me to lower the blood pressure. He helped me to get my blood pressure down by medication and also by changing diet. He was never successful in doing so. So I kind of got left behind. My platoon graduated and went on to Camp Lejeune, as they tend to do, but I was held over because I didn't want to go into the pilot school. Now, when I got out when he decided he let me out, the doctor finally said, I'm not going to send you down there because you're going to only get washed out with the pilot training school. So he said, we're going to have to figure out where we're sending you. So they actually sent me clear across the country to Camp Pendleton, which was kind of amazing. They made me fly all the way across the country, which is an experience in itself, in a military aircraft. And I got to Camp Pendleton. Of course, then I went to a specialized training, where specialized training there is the same thing as in Camp Lejeune, but just whether you're going to be a mechanic, you're going to be a mechanic, they're going to show you how to do mechanical work, how to work on planes, how to work on trucks and vehicles. I actually had to go to rifle training school again. And that was interesting because at Camp Pendleton, I met an instructor who taught me that when you aim a rifle, I'm a natural left-handed, and I was taught all the stuff you have to do as a right hand, how you hold the rifle, how you aim it, you use your right eye. Well, a right-eyed person and a left-eyed person are totally different in many cases. I'm left-eye dominant. So I came out of training school at Parasana as a marksman. I went to the rifle instructor at Pendleton, and he showed me how to do it left-handed, where I can aim left-handed, even though the bolt from the rifle comes back almost into your face. But if you get used to it and do it properly, use your left eye is a dominant, it makes it easier to aim the rifle. I came out of there as an expert marksman. So that was different classification. He was the only guy that ever taught me that. In Parasana, they never showed me how to do it other than that.
And so how did you adapt to military life in general, including the physical regimen, the barracks? What was the food like, social life?
Social life was quiet. Everybody was very quiet, especially at the beginning, because they didn't let you talk a lot. The drill instructor kept the noise down. Don't want communication. You want to have some private time. So that was okay. The food is good. I didn't have any complaints about that. What was the other one you mentioned to me?
How about the physical regimen?
Physical regimen. That was another issue that I had at Parasana. I was not able to do some of the physical things that they require you to. You go out there and you have phys ed, and you have to do sit-ups and you have to do push-ups and so on. The only thing I could do is climb the damn rope. Every like a 25-foot rope you have to climb up. I couldn't do it. Well, the one instructor took me on the side and he said, "You're not going to, just don't use your hands. You haven't got the physical ability to just use your hands to climb the rope. Some people do, some don't. But he says you have feet. Use your feet, and if you wrap your feet around the rope, you can actually walk up the rope." And he showed me how to do it, and he said, "Isn't that so much easier?" I said, "Well, sure is. I got climbed to the top like nothing." He said, "That's because you're using your feet and your muscles in your feet as well as your arms." He said, "It makes it much easier to do it." And that was a very perfect special instruction I got in the physical education. I had no problem passing all the other physical requirements. It was more strenuous than I'd been used to because I was not exercising in school.
Right. And how about the food?
The food was okay. It was different, but it was nourishing. Some of it was, they had all kinds of names, you heard things, but it was good food. It was nourishing. You didn't have any problems with consuming it. I didn't anyway. So it was very good.
And so where did you eventually, where were you sent to serve? Where did you serve?
Well, after I got out, I was in Pendleton for a while in doing the specialized training. And then when I got out of there, it didn't really know what to do with me because had this notation on my orders that I was going for pilot training, and I couldn't go to pilot training because of the physical issue. They put me on a boat. They told me I'm going overseas. That's all they told me. I had never read an order that said anything of that. They were sending me overseas. I got on a Navy boat and then went off. I think it took 6 days, 6 or 7 days. I ended up landing in Hawaii. And it was amazing that they sent me to Hawaii. I was not going to vacation. But then I got to a naval base in Hawaii. I got there and it was all naval base. And the guy said, "Well, you're a Marine." I said, "Well, yes, I know I'm a Marine." When I got at the boat, so he said, "Well, I had to make a phone call." So he called, and he comes, all of a sudden the Jeep comes. Well, the Marine Corps base had a base opposite the naval base. And I had to get on the Jeep, go clear across the mountains, which is basically across Oahu, and there's a base called Kaneohe Bay. That's a Marine Corps Air Base, and it's an air training base. That was interesting because I wanted to be in the airfield. But I got there and I found out, well, what am I doing over here? Well, they first of all, they looked at my orders and looked at my resume and my background and took me into battalion headquarters and made me a clerk typist because I knew how to spell and I knew how to add and subtract and so forth. So, and I was walking on a base, and I found out the base is an air base. It's a Kaneohe Air Base. It's an air training facility for pilots that are being trained how to land on carriers. So I'm watching them on the runway. They have what they do, touch and goes. The guy would take off, and the air base, the landing area would run to a lake, run to the ocean, and he'd fly out over the ocean and loop around, back around, come up against the mountain in the back and come back down to land on the pilot and the touch and go. And he did it like 5 times. I was asking some of the people what they're doing. They said they're training novice pilots how to land in a carrier. If you look on the runway, there are 2 lines going down the runway that determine the width of a carrier. So when he comes down, he has something to aim at. He has to keep his plane within the width of the carrier so he can land. Then when she touches, he can go right back up in the air. So one of the fellows that talked to me about that, I asked a question, and they got me an opportunity to go up in a plane. One of the instructors took me up in a plane, which he was not allowed to do. He said, if you have any repercussions about going, just tell me and I'll let you off right now. He said, but if you want to fly, I'll take you up in the pilot's flight. So I went up with him. It was quite an experience, quite exhilarating. It's like being on first time you go on a merry-go-round, what you call it, that?
Roller coaster?
Yeah, roller coaster, Cedar Point. You never quite know what to experience. Once you do it, you like it. You want to do it again. So he took me around 4 or 5 times, and I thought it was fun. Then when we flew up there, it was interesting to find, I landed on the base. I said, when I flew out over the ocean, I noticed there's a golf course on this base. I said, I never knew that. Well, he said, yeah, the golf course is there for the people that are here staying in the base and want to play golf. Well, this golf course was like Pebble Beach. Half of it was based along the ocean, and half of it was not, but it was just a beautiful golf course. This is where I learned to play golf originally, because I had so much free time. Every time I had free time, I walked over to the golf course, and it was 75, 50 cents to play golf.
And what did you do then? What was your...
So I was in the administration area. They put me in there, I could say, as a clerk typist, first of all. The gunnery sergeant that ran it asked me if I could type. I said, I don't know, I can henpeck, I can, on a typewriter. So he put me down, I did that for a while. I was doing typing, I was typing out orders. They were doing out on mimeograph type paper and so forth. So I could type and follow the instructions. I did that for about, 5 weeks. Then he said to me one day, the gunnery sergeant comes in and says to me, I've got something else for you to do. And he said, come up to me, and I walked down the hall, and he said, this is your office. He opened the door, and it was a relatively narrow office, but it was a one-man office. And he said, this is where you're going to be stationed. I said, what am I going to do here? Do I have any typing to do? He said, very little typing. He said, you're going to be in charge of intelligence. And I've put you through already. You're classified for classified information. I'm following up today to get you a secret clearance. By the time you're done here, you'll have a top secret clearance. Everything that comes into the organization is classified. You're going to be in charge of it. You keep a file. He showed me the file cabinets. He had to put everything in his order and make a file and classify it and put it there. And you're in charge of it. Nobody takes up one of those files without them signing, you signing them out, checking their clearance that they had proper clearance. So you're the classified specialist, as he called it. I'm a classified CEO. Anybody that wants a document comes to see me, asks what he needs. To verify he meets the classification, could take it out. Then I have to have him sign out on it. Everything has to be signed out and back to me within the day. By the end of the day, they have to have it back to me. Nobody takes anything off the base or out to home or read it or anything. It all comes, they take it to their office, use it, read it, whatever they want to glean on. They can't copy it or anything. They have to bring it back to me. So I'm in charge of it. And he said, at the end of the day, this is very simple instruction. He said, if at the end of the day, if you sign something out and somebody has to come back to you with it, here's the number you call. You call the police that are going to go after and find out where it is. They have to go to get it back to you within the end of the day. Most people were very good about it. Some of the young lieutenants and so forth, they didn't think it was a big deal, but they found it pretty quick that it was a big deal because they're.
Were there any instances where something big happened or where somebody got into trouble because of something to do with intelligence that you had to be part of?
Not my knowledge, and basically everybody was pretty good about getting it back to me because they understood the importance of this, that this was a document they had to sign out for and it had to be returned by the end of the day because I had to sign it back in. There were a couple cases, I think, where people got carried away with the time element. And if it wasn't back to me by 5 o'clock, I was instructed to call the officer.
And this was during what year? What years?
This would have been during the about 63, 64 period of time. And I saw a lot of intelligence. The other idea thing was interesting. I got to read everything that came in. Even once I got a top secret clearance, I could read the document, and I understood most of what was going on. Most of it at that time had to do with things that were going on in Vietnam, and how it was leading up to some activity in Vietnam. So I knew there was a lot of activity going on. Most of the top secret things were of that nature, and secret documents and so forth were more just operations in the local facility.
Relating to Vietnam?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I was aware of them. In fact, there were a couple of cases where whatever was going on in Vietnam, they were asking for volunteers to go over there for, I forget what they call them.
Reconnaissance? Or?
No, it's more just a volunteer for instruction or so forth. And I knew a couple of people on the base that signed up for it. They were volunteered. They volunteered to go over there for a short period of time, 3 or 4 weeks. And I know some that went over there. They was in a major city, and they were interested in it and liked it, but they didn't have anything to do with the war at the time. But there were some areas that were leading up to.
Right. Were there any other interesting happenings that you remember that made an impression on you that you would like to tell us?
Down at that time, now most of that, like I say, was sure there was a lot of secret documents I read, and probably startled me. But I don't recall them, or basically I've been instructed many times if I was reading a document, it's for your knowledge only. It's not for any further description or. Again, nobody can make copies of this and record. Pass it on to reporters or so forth, which I did. I followed strict orders at the time. It was just, I read it, I understood what they were talking about, and that was it.
Now, aside from playing golf, what other things did you do for recreation, to pass the time, to have fun?
Well, since we were in Hawaii, a number of us got together when we had free time, went off base. We actually ended up buying a house. Or not buying a house, we rented a house down in Waikiki at one time. There were some houses down there that were empty, and there were 4 or 5 of us that rented a house, and we would use it our recreation area. It was kind of unusual. I think it's probably pretty well closed up by now. They used to be very close to the Waikiki Beach. And Waikiki was known for the fact the beach was very much a college beach. Every girl that was on vacation that wanted to go to Hawaii ended up on the beach in Waikiki. But there was a tremendous number of beaches all around the island that were great. And I traveled all around the island. It was a lot of fun, just to see different places. I used to have a place up in what's called Marblehead, I think. I used to love the beach. It was a good beach for body surfing. I was not much for board surfing. Never learned how to do it. I watch a lot of people do it, but I like the water, I like being in the ocean. So I learned to body surf, and I learned to body surf up at Marblehead, which was a very tough beach at times because surf would come in fairly high, and there were a number of rocks around there. I remember times I was there and I said, what am I doing out here? I'm not a good swimmer. And I got tossed with us under the water and bounced off the rocks and so forth. So it was kind of a stupid I was a young guy at the time. I said, I'm infallible. It's not gonna hurt me. And I'm used to having my water bounce all around me. So it was fun. We did a lot of things that were in it. But if you loved water, I was never a very good swimmer, which is another interesting thing. I actually learned to swim in Hawaii. During the time I was there, we had an instructor that came, and everybody had to learn how to swim. And this guy was an instructor, and he was as great a swimmer. I don't know where he came from, but I swear he had webs on his feet. And he was a good instructor. He taught me how I could swim across. We had a typical pool. He showed me how to learn how to swim that pool, and by the time he was done with me, I could swim, and I felt safer in the water because of that.
Now, you and your buddies, did you ever play practical jokes on each other? What sort of things did you roughhouse? Was there?
No, we were in the military, so anything that took place in the barracks was. We were pretty much routine, what we had to do. We were in charge of keeping the place clean, and I don't remember anybody causing any problems or being...
No incidents or anything that you remember?
No, I can't recall anything at all. Well, I did recall we played tag football one day, and I made a stupid error. I went out and played with them, and we were playing in a rough field, and I stepped in a chuck hole and sprained I twisted my knee is what it was, and I ended up in the hospital for, I think, a week. They had to drain fluid off my knee and everything, because we were just out playing football on the field, and I was the one that stepped in the hole and twisted my knee. But that was the only thing that transpired. We went out once in a while to do stupid things like that. Football was the main thing we played. I was never one for playing soccer, but some of the guys played soccer. I was not a soccer player.
Now, I know you didn't see any combat, but did you witness any casualties or destruction or anything of that nature?
No, I didn't.
Now, what sort of friendships and camaraderies did you form while serving, and with whom?
Well, I formed a few. They were not lifelong friends, a few friends, younger kids and so forth from college. And like I said, one of them I know went overseas. He went to Vietnam for a couple weeks and came back and was very enthused about being over there. He was a young single guy, and it was a nice place to be. I forget what town they stayed in over there. But I had my own, and I formed friendships with a guy that taught me how to play golf and actually showed me how to. He actually gave me his golf clubs when he left. He got transferred home and left the golf clubs for me to keep using, and I kept them myself, but I never did transfer them back myself because it was too difficult to pack them up and ship them home.
Right. And while you were there, how did you stay in contact, in touch with your family, your parents, your siblings back home?
We were not very much for staying in touch. We wrote letters and back and forth at sometimes. My mother was more one I could write a letter to. My father was not much for writing letters or reading anything, so if I wrote to both of them, so they got the letter and read it, and sent a postcard or something like that, but that's about it. When I was getting out, I was just letting them know by sending a letter to them that I'm going to be getting out in this period of time.
Did you spend all of your time in Hawaii?
Then I spent all the rest of that time in Hawaii. I was within, I think, 3 weeks of being discharged, and I was thinking about extending and going into other duty, but they were starting to transfer people over to Vietnam, and I was getting cost. I wanted to go back and finish my college. I had a couple of years of finishing college, so I decided to go back and finish that up. So I just flew back to Pendleton. From there, they flew me home, and they discharged me, and I got out about 3 weeks early.
When you were in the service, you had mentioned that 2 of your brothers had also served. Was there any time when any of you were there in service together during the same time period?
No, my older brother Bernie was in the reserves, so he of course would go to the reserve duty. I think they went like 2 times for 2 weeks a year, something like that. He was still working at the Ford Motor Company. He went out with a group that he had up here in Cleveland.
And when you were wrapping up your stint, what were your plans? How were you planning for when you got home?
Well, my only plan for when I got home was I'm gonna not know exactly where I'm gonna stay, because I wasn't sure my parents would welcome me back home, but they would. But and I wanted to finish my college, so because that was my next plan. I had a couple of years to go. I had done some research, and I know it would probably take me a year, maybe a year and a half to actually finish up. So I went back home and finished that up, and during that period of time, I was contacted by General Electric in Cincinnati, the Evendale Jet Engine Plant, and they recruited me because I had mathematics background. And that was interesting because they brought me down there. I went down there for a couple of weeks, and they showed me what they do, and they said, "We want you to come here because we were just starting to use computers." And they had a computer. The computer room was like a monstrous building they built, and they said, "You're going to be programming this computer." I said, "Well, I don't know anything about programming a computer." They said, "They'll teach you how. It's very simple. Everything is done via punch card. So you have to figure out what you have to do, what you're trying to have the computer do, and you had to put it into a punch card and load it into the computer. Kick out a."
Now, once you left the military, what were the feelings of other people towards you? How did they greet you when you came back? Was there any, because you had been were you treated differently, better?
I had no problems about it because I grew up, like I say, out in North World. When I came back, I met a number of people I knew from school, and even was dating one of the girls at one time. So I had some things going on. I knew people and met them on a regular basis. Had no repercussions about. I knew some people that were still in college. Saw them once in a while, but they were kind of off on their own anyway. So we were all going in different directions. Just
with things gearing towards Vietnam, were there any what sort of feelings or atmosphere was it?
I didn't run into anybody in the community down there that had any problems at the time. I know there was a lot of people in colleges and so forth that were resisting being involved in Vietnam, but I didn't run into them personally and have to, experience any repercussions about you were in the service, and nobody held anything against me. I was not in Vietnam or hadn't been in the service in that area, and they knew where I was located, so they knew. Then they knew me. I didn't tell them anything.
And so your readjustment to civilian life went smoothly, no?
It went smoothly. I came back, I'd say I finished my college, I got my degree, went down to work for General Electric, and I decided I didn't want to be an engineer. That was interesting. I spent a year working as an engineer, helping them program that damn computer. And I decided I don't want to be an engineer any longer, because I met the guys that were 30 or 40 years in the aerospace industry as engineers, and it was a boring job. So I decided I wanted to go to sales, which is what I did. I transferred over, not transferred, I just found an organization that would help me go into the sales business. And that's what I did for 45 years. I was working with sales reps for 45 years, and enjoyed it very much.
And from your time in Hawaii during the service, have you remained in contact at all with any of your fellow veterans, or
No,
reunited at all?
really, we all separated and all kind of go our own ways. When we got transferred, and some people went into service, some went to Vietnam, some went this direction. I went my own way back to school and so forth, and I didn't know anybody else so I hadn't maintained any contact with anybody.
Are you a member of any veterans organizations?
No, I'm not.
And so you said for 45 years plus you've been in sales.
Right.
And how did your experience in the military affect your life?
I think it solidified my feelings about what I had to do, made me more self-sufficient, I thought, because I came back and finished my education, knew that was important, even though I didn't need it for the job I took at General Electric. And that helped me make my decision about when I took the job down there. I didn't want to be an engineer and sit at a desk all day long doing miscellaneous things. So that's why I wanted to be out in the field and meeting people and working with individuals. So that's what helped me go into sales. So it kind of solidified my thinking as making decisions that were fulfill me.
And so what are some of the life lessons that you learned from your service in the military?
Well, I learned how to play golf. I always say that was one of the most important things I learned there, is being able to play golf and have the opportunity to play golf. But and I still play today. But I felt service was a nice opportunity for me. I learned a lot of, even going all the way up back and looking today back at boot camp. I learned things at boot camp, like I say, about how to climb a rope and how to do things, how to do physical things that I never knew how to do. If you have the right person to instruct you and take the time, you can do it. So that was always a good thing. And with the Marine Corps, when they train you, you had to pass a physical every year. And the physical you had to pass every year included running, I think it was 3 miles, and carrying a pack and doing different things, climbing that rope, and that was all had to be done on an annual basis wherever you were stationed. And I never felt out of place being able to do it once I got through the physical training in the boot camp. So it was good. I wish I could still do the exercise today, but I don't have the opportunity to do so.
And how has your military service impacted your feelings about the military, about war, the military in general?
I have no hard feelings about it. I think they have served a purpose, and I had an opportunity to visit my one brother, an older brother, who was in the Air Base, at the Air Force down in Texas, and he had a good duty too. I mean, he had a good job. It was a nice base he was located at, and he took care of him. So he was well, and he met a woman down there. He married eventually, and they moved east. But it was, I think the military is good. It has its purpose, and if everybody understands what they're doing there, it's well worth being involved in it.
Any other stories or happenings that we haven't discussed or you haven't discussed that you would like to add?
Not at this time. I think I've pretty much covered everything I've done there, but like I say, I even went off tangent about talking about the fact I had the pilot took me up at the plane, which he was not allowed to do.
Were there any other things that made an impression on you that might not have been allowed, but that you were able to do and that made an impression on you?
I worked for part-time in the NCO club and ended up cooking pizzas and serving beer a lot. That was a lot of fun. But that was just a part-time job I ended up with somehow. And had time to do it, so I did it.
And did you have interactions then with the other soldiers and people coming in?
Well, I was not a beer drinker, so I didn't worry about it that much. If I was not an alcoholic, I never loved beer that much. So, but
you probably saw a lot of.
I saw some of the guys that were a little bit would indulge a lot. So, and I'm sure I was glad I didn't have that.
One last thing. What message would you like to leave for future generations who might view this interview?
Well, I think the message I leave and wouldn't want to leave is that, when you find something that's of interest to you, pursue it to the best of your ability and see if it works for you and see if you want to get involved in it rather than back away from it. So many people back away from things they don't know anything about because they don't take the time to fully understand them. I think if you look at the military in general, a lot of people don't want to get involved in the military, especially if it's in time of war and where there's bad things. There are bad things going on today.
Yeah.
So a lot of people shy away from it because of that.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you, Mr. Toman, for sharing your story with us, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.